Benvingut. Welcome. Let's get started. This time I'm inviting you to Europe's Mediterranean region, to Occitania in its own language, Occitan. When people talk about Occitan, they often hesitate. Huh? Occitan? Is it a language? Is it Provençal? Is it just a patois? Occitan is one of those languages that is often spoken about, yet rarely listened to. It has millions of speakers, or at least millions of descendants of speakers, and one of the richest literary traditions in medieval Europe. And still, many people are unsure what Occitan even is. That makes it a perfect subject for aliīs, vōcibus, a series about lesser-known languages as they are heard, labeled, judged, and framed by others. Because in the case of Occitan, names matter, and names have consequences. What is Occitan? Occitan is a Romance language in its own right, not a dialect of French. It developed from Latin in much the same way as French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, or Catalan, but along its own historical path, primarily in what is today southern France. Historically, it was known as Languedoc, the language of Oc, the word for yes, as opposed to Langue d'Oil in the north, one of which later became French. In Old French, yes was oil. Occitan once had a high prestige literary culture, a standardized poetic language, and international influence through the medieval troubadours, or troubadours, as they are called in Occitan itself. This was not a marginal or rustic speech form. It was a major European language, a language with too many names. One of Occitan's biggest problems is not grammar or vocabulary, it's naming. The term Occitan refers to a language continuum that includes varieties such as Provençal, Languedocian, Gascon, Limousin, Auvergnat, and others. Linguistically, these are varieties of one language, comparable to dialect groups within Italian or German. But socially, things look very different. Provençal is often treated as a separate language, or even as the real name of Occitan. This fragments the language conceptually and politically, weakening any claim to collective recognition. Instead of one language with regional varieties, Occitan becomes many small local quote-unquote dialects, each too small to demand recognition, each easy to folklorize. Then there is the word patois. Patois is not a linguistic category. It is a social judgment disguised as a description. In France, it has long been used to describe language varieties not officially recognized, non-standard speech, speech mode of rural populations, and languages seen as obstacles to national unity. Calling Occitan a patois is a way of saying, this is not a real language. This does not belong in schools. This does not belong in public life. A language that is not named properly is much easier to silence. Occitan and Catalan, a tale of two sisters. Occitan is one of the languages most closely related to Catalan. Linguistically, the two form a subgroup within Romance. They share vocabulary, phonology, syntax, and medieval literary traditions. In the Middle Ages, the cultural space of Occitan and Catalan was continuous. The Pyrenees were not a linguistic border. And yet today, Catalan and Occitan live in very different worlds. Catalan is standardized, is used in education, has official status, and is widely perceived as a real language. Occitan is fragmented, marginalized, often excluded from schools, and frequently dismissed as a dialect. This difference is not linguistic, it is political. Catalan benefited from institutions, sustained prestige, and legal recognition. Occitan did not. Languages don't decline because they lack structure. They decline because they lack support. Where Occitan is spoken today. Occitan is often thought of as a purely French phenomenon, but its story extends beyond France. Most Occitan speakers live in France, across a large southern area, Yet France officially recognizes only one language of the Republic, French. Like Greece, it sticks to the old European ideal of one country, one language, linguistic diversity being considered a threat to national unity. Occitan is acknowledged culturally, but denied the kind of legal protection that would ensure intergenerational transmission.
Toulouse, il y avait toute une fin de parròquios, tout autour. Après, bon, ero pas l'abilo, que l'abilo parlavo, né, mais après, nosaltres realment parlaven. Bon.
In Spain, things look very different. In the Val d'Aran of Catalonia, Occitan, also known as Aranés, is officially recognized, taught in schools, and used in administration. This makes Occitan one of the more rare cases where it enjoys more rights outside France than inside.
El meu nom és típic de la Val d'Aran. Jo naixi en Viella, en Espitau. M'agrada molt la Val d'Aran perquè són poblacions molt petites i tot i mos portam bastantment entre nosaltres hem molt la massa d'amb tot. El meu nom.
In northern Italy, several alpine valleys are Occitan-speaking. Here too, Occitan is recognized as a minority language under Italian law. Again, more than it is in its historical heartland.
Antacampau a parlare de misumpi, andavo a scuola e piemontesismo, attaccavo a te fare coesione, allora impianta qui completamente mio. Antacampau.
Monaco's traditional language is Ligurian, not Occitan, but Occitan played an important historical role in the region and contributed to its cultural landscape. Together, these regions show that Occitan was never just local, it was trans-regional and once prestigious. The French paradox. France represents a paradox. It celebrates regional cultures, regional foods, regional music. But when it comes to languages, the state has historically insisted on uniformity. Regional languages are often acknowledged symbolically, yet restricted practically. They may be taught optionally, spoken privately, celebrated folklorically, but rarely allowed to function fully in administration, education, or public life. The result is a slow but steady language shift, not through force, but through neglect. French influence on Occitan. After centuries of contact, French has left deep traces in modern Occitan. Vocabulary, pronunciation, even sentence structures. This is sometimes portrayed as corruption, but that framing misses the point. Languages influence each other all the time. Contact does not kill languages. What kills languages is asymmetric power. When one language is required for success and the other is optional or is discouraged. Occitan did not fail to resist French. It was placed in a system where resistance had a cost. Why Occitan matters? All languages matter, of course. But Occitan matters not only because of its history, but because of what it reveals about language politics. It shows us how naming shapes legitimacy, how fragmentation weakens recognition, and how prestige is constructed, not earned linguistically. Occitan has words for everything a language needs to say. What it lacks is the right to be heard on its own terms. Finally, Occitan has many voices, but too often others decide what those voices are allowed to be. And that is why Occitan belongs in aliīs vōcibus, the channel devoted to other voices. Because sometimes the most important question is not how does this language sound, but who gets to decide what it is.
Hello.